So moving on from a pack hunter, we're going straight for a solo hunter, the Tyranid Dimacaron. Now, despite its name, it's not a delicious type of cookie. No, the Dimacaron is actually a creature bred purely for taking out enemy commanders. This thing is bristling with blade arms, claws, teeth. It's able to leap a Lebenrust battle tank without breaking a stride, and it has a spring-ringed mouth hidden within the thorax. This thing launches this mouth out of its thorax and uses its rib cage to essentially eat them through the rib cage somehow. I don't know how that works, but it also manages to inject them with biological acid, reducing the victim's internal organs into a slurry of nutrients to be absorbed by it.
Here's the problem with this thing. The size of the mouth, plus the head, plus all of the internal organs required for this biological creature to survive. Because I have found that most Tyranids, at least their ground forces, require to eat, breathe, and actually sleep. Here's the problem. This thing does not have a large enough stomach. Meaning that for basic bodily needs, it has to feed continuously. To generate enough nutrients to support a body of its size, it has to eat a full human-sized meal every 22 minutes. Or it will start to die of starvation. To say it is a berserker would be an understatement. You would literally release this thing from its incubating sac directly at the enemy and hope that it eats enough of them before it dies. The mouth in the thorax is actually a very vulnerable point because it has to open up its rib cage to eat, furthermore exposing its heart chamber and its lungs to potential incoming fire. If this thing is going to grab you like that, do you want to know my suggestion? Pull the pins on all your grenades. You're dying anyway, take it with you. It is strictly a bioterror weapon with an extremely short spastic lifespan and no hope of actually blocking incoming damage for the most part because its armor is strictly on the parts of it that would not be facing the enemy. And for spite purposes, it's not going to sneak up on you. It's going to come charging at you, screaming at the top of its lungs that it's hungry.
Essentially, this is a T-Rex on crack, isn't it?
It is a T-Rex on crack with a stomach the size of your fist. It must eat now.
I've now just got the playing from my head that theme song of that wrestler Ryback, feed me more. Just constantly playing now.
Don't blame you.
We don't blame it either. So, moving on then. Next up is the Tyranid Dominatrix. And get your mind out of the gutter, viewer. I know what you're thinking. No, this isn't Rule 34. This thing is a creature bigger than an Imperial Super Heavy tank, which is also extremely intelligent. It's actually a commander of sorts of the Tyranid Hive fleets on the ground. It is absolutely enormous, equipped with massive ripping claws, fangs, loads of symbiotic weaponry. These things are just big. They're not big enough as a Bio-Titan. I think the best way to describe it would be like, say if you had an Imperial commander riding inside a Baneblade, this will basically be the equivalent.
So, I'm going to go over this, and you guys are going to find this very interesting. The Thorn Queen that it bears with it is in fact humanoid. Not only in appearance, but as it turns out, a recovered corpse of one was believed to be a former Psyker of the Imperium.
Really?
Furthermore, it is a strictly command and control unit. Since the Thorn Queen inside basically directs the swarm's evolution in the field, destroying it is beyond crippling. Whereas with most armies, if you destroy the command and control center, yes, you cripple the army, but there's like secondary commanders that can take over. The destruction of the Thorn Queen and Dominatrix would actually directly cripple the swarm until a new one was made, which might not happen. I begin to wonder why this is ever even deployed on the battlefield. The reason being is because due to its extremely long-range psychic projections, because it can talk directly to the Hive Fleet heart. We're talking light years away. It can still talk to you with psychic projections. Why is it necessary to put it in harm's way? Anything short of a fortified hive position or the Hive Fleet itself would seem ludicrous. But sure enough, this thing is actually found only miles from the front line, or at the front line itself. The bristling weaponry does provide a challenge. Its armor spike plates are in fact the thickest spike plates in the swarm, thicker than even the Hive Bio-Titans' high armor plates, and the armor and due to its size and stature of being extremely low to the ground, its plates are almost impossible to shoot around. Furthermore, I discovered that its plates are actually interlocked properly for both movement and to prevent stray rounds from having a chance of penetrating via ricocheting off one of the plates and getting underneath. But I don't know why you would deploy this to the front line.
Perhaps you deploy this to the front line if, say, for example, the Tyranids were encountering an enemy that was fought on every occasion, and then it needed pretty much direct control. Basically, like, you guys can't get it done, I'm going to tell you what to do myself. So maybe it can get down there, you can actually see and assess the situation and go, right, this is what you need to do.
I can see that, but the breeding time on a Dominatrix, as it turns out, is almost a year to gestate and breed one properly, according to the Tyranid Codex. Why would you deploy something that takes a year to make? It seems very counterintuitive, because it could get shot down on the way to the ground. Once on the ground, it is vulnerable to enemy fire or even, commando teams looking for it. If an army sees one of these things, it should become priority number one to kill it, because in the event it dies, there are reports that its psychic projections actually will kill synapse creatures it's linked to. You could literally decimate the entire hive command and control with a single kill. This is the head of the snake, effectively. More so than the hive tyrant.
And that being said, though, you've got to get to the damn thing.
True, you do have to get to the damn thing, and it does have the same ability to emit stress pheromones that can be detected from several miles away, and activate Tyranid defense instincts to have every single thing that smells it rushing right towards her.
And let's be honest, unlike other armies, the Tyranids aren't exactly going to be sitting around and making a base camp to rest up for a big battle. They're just going to go forth, eat on the move, kill anything in their way. They are a swarm of locusts.
True.
So, unlike other armies, you're not exactly going to get a chance for a commander team to sneak into the base camp to assassinate them under the cover of darkness.
Very true. However, there is one other thing to account for here. The Dominatrix appears to... The Thorn Queen that is located within, apparently, is actually made from commanders of the Tyranid that the Tyranid faced, that are quote-unquote formidable, which means that potentially the Tyranids can grab your best commanders and convert them into Tyranids.
Resistance is futile.
Very much so. And also, since the thing is psychic, it actually has, I believe, some psychic attacks. Which means that, in addition to the weapons and the claws, I can fuck with your mind! That's not cool.
That being said, that might be another reason why it's deployed in the front line. If for whatever reason, say the Tyranids are fighting against a Necron army, for example, we know that the Necrons are vulnerable to psychic attack, as are Demons of Chaos.
True.
Coming against a demon horde, just a huge blast of psychic energy from the Dominatrix to help weaken them.
could be the reason. That would actually make a lot more sense. Or it could be a counter. It could be the ultimate encounter psyker to basically say, I brought the blue deck of psykers.
And I just want to point out as well that the Tyranid Hive Mind, aka the Shadow in the Warp, it's once its effect is in play, no other psychic in the galaxy can peer through the warp while the Shadow of the Warp is there. With the exception of Valor Tigarius of the Ultramarines, because, of course, Matt Ward will make an Ultramarine more powerful psychically than the fucking Emperor. But these things are known to be able to block access to the warp for all races.
Actually, anything the Ultramarines do, I just look over and go,
Fuck you, Matt Ward.
No, I seriously just look over and go, bullshit, you're lying.
Yeah, that too. So as we all know, they had a bloody half Eldar in their ranks as their chief librarian. If you understand what I'm saying, cookie for you. If you don't, look it up. It is true.
Which brings us to the final critter.
Yes, the final critter we're looking at today is the Tyranid Aerophant Bio-Titan. Now, these things are generally armed with 2 biocannons, scything claws, and also secrete toxic spores into the air. They weigh around 53.5 tons, stand around 15 meters tall, and have multiple chitin blades and plates, and are generally quite big and quite nasty. And they also have been known to mutate rapidly, evolving new weapons and defenses. There have been variants of the Biotitans seen with crushing claws, or cluster spines, or other bioweaponry.
Well, let's talk. The Hierophant is extremely more agile than other Titans. It is quicker, faster, and it is actually capable of outrunning rhinos.
I assume you mean the tank and not the actual animal.
Yes, the Rhino Space Marine carrier that does 55 kilometers per hour. This thing can outrun it because its top speed is 72.2 kilometers an hour, or the equivalent of being able to keep up with a Leopard 2.
That's a big, fast bug.
That is faster than a cheetah, and it's huge. In addition to this, its shape of its body is more akin to a flying wasp, indicating that the creatures are capable of evolving to have wings and fly.
That's a terrifying prospect.
Its armor plating is in fact only rivaled in sloping and design to the Dominatrix. However, its armor plating is the thickest. If the Carnifex's armor plating is 50 millimeters and the Scythe Hierodule is 30 millimeters, this thing's armor plating is 88 millimeters thick. In addition to all of this, the spore cloud it ejects around it could potentially be a weapon versus other hive fleets, since we know that each hive fleet has a unique genetic code and a unique genetic variant. The spore cloud only does not affect those of the same genetic variant, meaning a slain Hierophant could be used to be transported across the galaxy and kept semi-alive in order to continue to generate the gas, and the gas pumped at another hive fleet, killing it. And it's because of the way that the hive fleet's various gas clouds work. If you are not initially evolved to be able to resist the gas cloud, you are not in fact able to resist the gas cloud at all, or have the potential for that evolution. This is why Hellfire rounds, regardless of where they're deployed to, still work. That much said, the underbelly tendrils, I am unsure how they activate. The only thing I can determine is they activate based upon pheromones generated by the swarm, in that if you don't generate those pheromones, then you are in fact a target. Which, because the creature has a standard set of eyes and therefore has standard sensory input as most other creatures, and that probably doesn't have direct control of its underbelly tendrils. Which means that if you want to get underneath it and shoot up into it, kill a Hormigaunt and cover yourself in the Hormigaunt's blood. You will literally be immune to this thing's perimeter defenses, since it does not emit the gas cloud actively, but instead reactionarily. In other words, it only emits the gas cloud when something that does not have the proper hive fleet pheromone comes within range. So if you're covered in Tyranid guts, you're in better shape.
That is if it doesn't pick up the center of your gun or your ammunition.
True. However, that would mean that the attack would be directed at the weapon. So a remote weapon system covered in Tyranid guts would be even more effective. Such as a heavy bolter with a servitor controlling it covered in Tyranid guts.
How effective would this thing be against other Titans? Because as we know it's incredibly fast.
We know it's incredibly fast. It can dodge or outmaneuver most Titans, except for in the case of the Eldar Titan or possibly the Warhound. Even the Orc Gargant is going to have an extreme trouble keeping up with it in close quarters. Furthermore, its weight comes out to only 60 tons. It is the lightest Titan.
But that being said, though, if it goes up towards another Titan at top speed and leaps upon it, the weight will be able to knock the Titan down. Because let's be honest, if a Titan gets hit in the upper body with about 60 tons of weight, it's going to have a hard time keeping its balance.
It could knock down most of the smaller Titans. Anything short of an Imperator or a Relic Titan, or Requiem Titan would actually fall over. However, that's not what you're concerned with. What you're concerned with is the force its claws exert when they impact. Its individual legs are capable of 6.2 megatons of impacting force on an area the size of a human head. To illustrate how direct of an impact that actually is, Little Boy dropped on Nagasaki does not have the same direct impact force. It has more force in terms of area of effect, but in terms of pinpoint accuracy, this could penetrate anti-nuclear bunkers all the way through to the Foundation.
This thing has claws that have more penetration power than a nuke.
Has more penetration power than a nuke, has more penetration power than a mono bunker buster, has more force behind it than an air fuel bomb. Getting stepped on by this thing alone would deliver enough force to literally
liquefy.
No, not liquefy. I was referring to a tank.
Oh.
It would not just pierce the tank. It would shatter a Lehman Russ just by stepping on it, much less actually willingly impacting into a Bane blade. Would just fracture into pieces from being hit by it. You would split a Bane blade in half with that kind of force. Furthermore, its regeneration rate. I calculated this out based on 60.2 tons of biomass, regenerating 10% of its biomass in 1 minute. That means that you have to slog off 7 tons of biomatter from its body per minute to kill it. To illustrate how much 7 tons is, that is 704 average weight human beings would have to be completely obliterated every minute. Not just obliterated, I mean like incinerated into ash every minute to shred off enough biomatter to overcome its regeneration rate. you would need literally 3 companies of Leman Russ battle tanks firing all their weapons continuously at it to kill it. And even then, it would take a full 9 minutes, 17 seconds of firing to bring it down. And for those who don't know, 3 companies is 48 tanks.
So how does this stack up against other Titans on our ranking scale?
By the way, for those of you who's like, other Titans have void shields, this one has psychic void shields too. Spite purposes, guys. Spite purposes. To stack this up against other Titans on this scale, anything short of the ultra-sized Super Titans, this thing would, I think it would win. Especially if it can get to close quarters combat. And considering its size and momentum, it's incredibly hard to hit. For those who think that, oh, it's not that hard to hit, no, trust me. Hitting a moving target going 70 kilometers an hour is incredibly hard to hit. Go try it sometime. Anything over 100 meters would be really hard to hit, and this thing is 250 meters long, so once it's within 100 meters of you, you're screwed. Except for in the case of weaponry flying at the speed of light, such as las cannons or laser-based weaponry. But plasma weapons would have a difficult time to hit it because they're very slow velocity. Main battle tank guns would have a very difficult time actually hitting the target because it's not only moving, but it's actively dodging. Furthermore, its reaction time is obscene.
Yeah, because unlike other Titans, this doesn't have crew. It's just one singular mind, essentially. Well, you can say it's being directed by the hive mind, but essentially it's a living organism. It's got its own reflexes.
It's actually only being directed by the hive mind because it's also it doesn't react to synapse creatures around it. It instead has a direct synapse that only applies to it. So furthermore, its reaction time, Tyranid reaction time, human reaction time is 3/10 of a second. That's how long. That is perfect reaction time for an event, from the time it happens until the time that we undertake it. Space Marine reaction time is 19/100ths of a second, or just over half of the reaction time of a normal person. When I say reaction time, by the way, guys, that is the time it takes for your sensory organs to tell your brain something has happened, and for your brain to make a decision about what to do without having to think about it. The Hierophant's reaction time is 2/100ths of a second. From the time its sensory organs tell it something to the time its brain tells its muscles to move is 2/100ths of a second. A rifle flash is 5/100ths of a second in length. That means that it can see the rifle flash aimed at it and force its body to move before the round has exited the chamber. To even hit this creature is a feat. Unless you're just putting so much fire at it that it cannot outcalculate and outmaneuver you. In a one-on-one fight, it is more likely to defeat any Titan it is fighting. You need a combined arms approach so that it can't dodge the incoming fire. Because Tyranid reaction time is apparently obscene.
Now imagine these hunting in packs.
What? They come in packs?
They have been known to.
Why? You don't need more than one. Well, never mind. It's the Tyranids. You always need more than one.
The Tyranids are all about overkill.
In addition, it can equip all of the weapons that the Swarm could equip, by the way. So, and it's the only Tyranid hive creature whose body is actually resistant to the acid for which it spews, meaning that rupturing its acid sac will not, in fact, kill it.
It'll probably just piss it off.
More importantly, it turns out the brain is not located in the head. No vital organ is actually located in the head other than the eyes. The brain is actually located next to the heart and lungs. So you have to penetrate the thickest point of its armor, its rib cage, and its center body and the center of its back in order to properly take out the brain, and remember, the brain will regenerate. You have to actually overcome its regeneration factor enough to shut down its brain, heart, lungs, and liver. You have to shut down all of those organs before it dies. It stays dead. The reason you have to shut down the liver is it turns out the liver is the actual primary organ responsible for generating the regeneration enzymes that cause it to regenerate tissue. I did my research on this one, and I was like, holy shit, this keeps getting more and more interesting. How does this work? Wolverine would be envious of you.
Now someone's going to go and give one of these things an adamantium skeleton.
Sure, let's give it an adamantium skeleton, and let's make one of our psychers control it.
Now the orcs will just loot it, won't they?
Somehow, yes, you showed me a looted Carnifex, and I went, no, please no. Please no, orcs. Please, we do not need orc-Tyranid hybrids that actually cooperate together. The galaxy would be doomed.
Well, they are the orc genestealer hybrids, which are seen on orc freebooter fleets.
Well then.
Yes. So overall, that be the concluding of the Tyranid organs we're looking at. On a scale of all the armies we've ranked so far, where did the Tyranids come on the list?
The Tyranids and orcs are fighting for first place. Sadly, but true, that they're fighting for first place.
I'm generally surprised that the Tyranids actually are going for first place. I imagine to be around third or fourth.
No, the Tyranid, because of the Titan and the black hole generating gun, they are fighting for first place. Their armor is designed very well for a biological... Actually, for a tank, their armor is designed very well, even though they're a biological organism. More importantly, their armor regenerates, which is a factor I had to take into account, because it means that even if you blow a hole in the carapace in a couple hours, that carapace will heal itself, or in the case of the Hierophant, the carapace will actually heal itself in less than a minute.
Which obviously gives it advantage because it doesn't need a mechanic or a tech priest to come and fix things.
There's no logistics needed for this army to function. So it just needs to be able to kill its enemy and eat them so it can keep going forward. The actual defect with the Hierophant, and this is the last note on it, is the fact that it has to eat. And it has to eat a lot. It has to eat so much, in fact, that there are cases in which it will turn on the swarm and eat creatures around it in order to sustain itself in the event that it lacks biological matter to eat that is not Tyranid. So just because you're next to your big brother doesn't mean Big Brother's not going to turn towards you and go, nom 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 tasty.
But is it worth pointing out that the Tyranids only need to ingest biological matter? They don't actually need to eat like just pure meat.
True. They can eat plant, they can eat meat, they can even eat, as gross as it sounds, the Tyranid swarm does not actually generate feces or urine, they actually eat it.
Basically anything better than Jamie Oliver ever cooked.
They can actually, in some cases, eat rocks in order to get the bacteria off the rocks as a temporary form of sustenance.
So when you put it that way, running out of food is not going to be too much of an issue, because if they're fighting on a big open field, for example, well, there's a tree, there's some grass, just mow it.
Generally speaking, if you're retreating from a Tyranid swarm, you need dedicated flamer teams literally doing scorched earth all the way back. Everything burns.
For miles around.
And you would be able to starve the Tyranids out that way. But you would have to have a lot of coordination, and your front line would have to be holding long enough for the napalm flamers and whatever have you is creating the scorched earth to in fact create that scorched earth scenario. And you would need to create enough scorched earth that the Tyranids would require more than 2 days to cross it, because at that point they would start starving to death. So you would need roughly Hierophant moving at 72 kph times 24, you would need roughly just over 1,500 kilometers of pure scorched earth between you and the swarm in order to make that tactic effective.
Essentially, you need an entire country to be stripped bare.
To illustrate how large that is, you would basically need to nuke all of the Ukraine into atomic dust. Good luck.
And just hope the Tyrants are in the center of it when you do.
Exactly. So, guys, we are going to do 2 more episodes. One is on walkers. The other is on all the stuff we missed you wanted to see. So leave a comment. Let us know stuff we missed that you want to see, and we'll put it on the list. We're going to start forming this list now, and I'm going to start doing the research now, and no matter how obscure it is, I can probably get it, because I actually have full unrestricted access to the former bunker located in Maryland for Games Workshop. So I have access to models that people didn't even think existed.
Ah. That will be interesting, won't it?
That's how I got access to a lot of the old epic models for the Chaos episode. Was I literally just drove down to the bunker for a couple hours and went, or the former bunker, and went, hey, I need to see these vehicles if you guys don't mind, and here's what it's for. And they were more than happy to help me. So they literally have every single model, vehicle, and Forge World stuff, everything. They have every single thing that Forge World and Games Workshop has ever produced there. So if you want to see it, I can get it.
So in the meantime, this has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
And this has been Fiaura.
And we'll see you all again.